Screen share. All right. Can you hear me, Presley? Sorry.
Yeah,
yes.
Loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. All right, we'll give it a few moments. All right, because I've got about 5 minutes at the beginning, I think we'll just kick off. And then by the time we get to you, Presley, we should have everyone who's joining the call on the call. So hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar series, Sourcing Trends on the Future of Mice. My name is Glenn Grossick, and I'm the Managing Director of HSMAI Southeast Asia, and I'll be your host for today's session. Our sponsor for this webinar series is Cvent, who are the global leaders in meetings, events, and hospitality meetings technology. So they are well placed to update us today on all the latest trends in the mice space, and we'll get to that in a moment. So I'd like to introduce our speakers today. So we have Presley Barretto, the Senior Sales Manager from Cvent. Hello, Presley.
Hi, Glenn.
Okay, and joining us also is Cy West, Area Director of Sales and Distribution for Japan for Marriott International. So we'll get a really good take on the hotelier's perspective of what's happening with the mice now and in the future. Just before we get going, I'll take about 5 minutes just to run through a little bit about HSMAI. Now, first of all, about that is decoding the acronym. What is HSMAI? It's Hospitality Sales and Marketing Association International. Our organization covers 4 main regions, being the Americas, Europe, Asia Pacific, and the Middle East. Now, we are a not-for-profit global association of sales, marketing, revenue management professionals of the hospitality industry. We were founded in 1927, so this year is our 95th birthday, and we're an individual membership organization with over 7,000 professional members across 41 countries. So in essence, we're like a professional society. So we operate like that. We focus on individuals, and we focus on improving the knowledge, skills, and providing opportunities to people working in or managing the commercial disciplines in the hospitality, hotels, and resorts space. Okay, as I mentioned, we're a membership. So we cover, we provide education, training. We do a lot of industry events. Some of them you may know of, they're quite popular. And we also have various networking opportunities throughout the year. If you're interested in membership, you can go to our website on hsmaiasia.org and then find the membership page from there and read more at your own will and reach out to us. Okay, a big part of what we do is education. So in terms of our education side, we have at HSMAI Academy, where we have 3 certifications, more than 20 online courses, and 2 certificate programs. So if you're looking at upskilling yourself, we provide a lot of very industry specific and to the moment relevant education opportunities. Again, you can visit hsmaiacademy.org for more information on that. Now, out of those educations, you're probably most familiar, if some of you know a little bit about HSMAI, you're most familiar with CRME, which is the Certified Revenue Management Executive Program, and the CHDM, the Certified Hotel Digital Marketer. These 2 certifications are globally recognized and have been in place for years. So if you're looking at taking your revenue or digital marketing experience to the next level and get certified, then again, just visit the website and get in contact with us from there. Okay, now in terms of upcoming events, towards the end of November, on the 21st, we have a total revenue forecasting masterclass, which will be a fantastic class for anyone in the revenue management space. That's with Dr. Detlev Remy from SIT University and Anders Johansson. He's the CEO of Demand Calendar. I've seen this masterclass before, and it's well worth the hour and a half that you'll put in to attend this, which is free for members. And then following that, on the 22nd, the next day, we have Using Content to Improve Conversion Masterclass, which again, if you're a marketer and you're looking at how, or a revenue manager, and looking how to maximize and monetize your content, then this will be a great class for you to attend also. Okay, now in terms of marking your calendars in 2023, HSMI Asia Pacific has two of our key events, the HSMA Rock Asia Pacific, which is the Revenue Optimization Conference held in Singapore at Marina Bay Sands. Next year, if you'd like to mark your calendar now, so you're reminded next year is on the 11th to 12th of May. And our second large conference is the HSMI Digital Marketing Strategy Conference in Phuket, and that will be held on the 23rd of August next year. You can go on our website at hsmaiasia.org/events to check out more about the details, and keep an eye on that over the next 3 to 4 months as the content gets updated and we start seeing what sessions will be covered in those events. Okay, for example, this was in June in Singapore, where we had a great turnout. Straight after the borders opened, we held our in-person Rock Singapore conference, where we had over 150 people attend, right from C-level decision makers through to hotel executive teams. So it was a fantastic event. Everyone, lots of networking opportunities and some really fantastic content. And again, next year will be bigger and better because we certainly had challenges putting that on in person so quickly after the borders opened, but it was a real success in the end. And that was our organizing committee plus sponsors and so forth for the event. So if you'd like to get involved in Rock, again, you can reach out to us directly and see if there's any sponsorship or partnership opportunities. Okay, you can, as I mentioned earlier, you can contact us directly on info@hsmaiasia-asia.org or follow us on our social platforms. And coming back to our webinar today, if you have any questions, please don't use the raise the hand button on the Zoom bar at the base of your screen. Just simply type in your question in the Q&A and then we'll announce it, and we can either put you on speaker to ask it or we can ask it for you. But if you put it there, we can handle the questions from there. Okay, without any further ado, what we're all here for today is listen to Presley and Cy talk about the future of mice. So I'll hand over to Presley and we'll go into our webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Glenn. That was great. Give me a couple of seconds while I just share my screen.
No problem.
Right, very good morning, everyone, and thank you all for joining us on this presentation today, during which we will be discussing the future of mice and embracing the new industry paradigm with a special focus on Japan. Now, my name is Presley Barretto, and a second. Glenn, you're able to see my screen, right?
Yes, we are.
Yeah,
we can see you on the presenter screen. Yes.
Awesome. So my name is Presley Barretto, and I'm a strategic regional senior sales director. I'm still getting used to saying that. I've been with Cvent for about 11 years now, and I've had the good fortune of managing Cvent's partnerships in a variety of regions, starting with Europe, moved into Middle East, and now I manage the North Asian belt. What you will be seeing more of today is we're going to look at the current sourcing landscape from a mice perspective in Japan. We will then be looking into a survey that we conducted recently on Asian planners. So this will give you a better insight of what to expect in Japan over the coming months and how a planner's thinking, what kind of events are they going to source. And finally, we'll be talking about automation and how it is slowly moving into our industry and how it is a requirement for the future. So let's dive straight into it. We're going to look at some performance numbers for Japan, and I'd like you to focus towards the right-hand corner of your screen where you see the unique room nights. Now, here we've seen a major increase in the size of the business that's coming through. So we had a 71% increase over the last 12 months in terms of the unique room nights that was sent across Japan, which was at 108,557 bedrooms. Now, in most scenarios, when you see an increase in the number of room nights, you'll also see an increase in the value. And here as well, we had a 40% increase in terms of the overall value that was sent across Japan at 36.7 million. What was very, very interesting and positive for me was a big positive trend that 56% of the RFPs that were sent into Japan were for both meeting space and bedroom. And, you know, if a lot of you have connected with me over the last say maybe 12 months ago or 18 months ago, that was not the trend. Japan predominantly had RFPs coming in, which were for meeting space only, which were day meetings, and that was primarily because of the impact of the pandemic. So a lot of groups that were being sourced were having people come in during the day and leave, you know, by the evening. Thankfully, that's now changing with the borders opening up. I think that's a lot of the laws, the quarantine laws have been relaxed, and that's allowing meeting planners to get back to what their sourcing was pre-pandemic, 2019. Now, we're not saying that we're back to the same levels. What we're basically suggesting is that we're seeing that positive trend where we're having the same type of RFPs come back across Japan on the CVN systems. Now, if you look at it on a month-on-month basis, now this is a 12-month view for you. And if you look at 2022 right from the beginning, that is from January right up till October, then there's been a consistent sourcing pattern. We've seen an increase just about in every month when we compare it to the same time last year, which is again a big positive because we're seeing consistent growth. As we continue to move away from the pandemic, we're hoping that these percentage increases that we're seeing right at the top of each bar are going to grow even further. What's very important to know is, where is this business coming from? Now, we know that over the last 2.5, 3 years, we had a lot of Japanese meeting planners who were sourcing within Japan. But we've seen a shift over in 2022. We're now seeing a lot of US meeting planners who have started sourcing back into Japan, which is about 36%. The Japanese meeting planners are not too far behind at 29%. And we have UK and Europe at about 9%. So if you were to total this up, then close to about 45% of the total business that comes across Japan is coming from the West, which is a big positive, because what that also means is that there'll be more revenue associated with each RFP, which is what we want.
And 40, would that be
So
50% of that 45% is rooms-based meeting,
yes.
right? Yeah,
Will be hard to say because
a
56% of the
ballpark.
total business is about bedrooms and meeting space. But it's fair to say
Uh,
that if we were to do this comparison, say 12 months prior, then we probably didn't have a lot of bedrooms to show, but we do have more bedrooms coming in from the West. And look, with the pandemic, you know, slowly moving away, I think we're going to see more bedrooms coming through, Glenn. So that's a very valid point you make there, which is a big takeaway for everyone. Moving on, and this is my favorite slide, because I know for the last 3 years we've been stuck with the smaller groups. We've had a lot of regulations from the government regards to what size of business can be sourced, and it's fantastic to see that planners are now moving away from that. We don't have a lot of small businesses being sourced. So as you see here, I'm sorry, small RFPs being sourced. So as you see here, 0 to 25 is the size of the attendees. And as you can see here, which is the green bar in 2021, 75%, was like a big chunk of business coming into Japan, which was just small RFPs, small number of people associated with that. That has dropped considerably. It's gone down by 50%, whereas all of the bigger groups are now starting to see a major increase, and that's what we all want to see. I know it's still early days, but just to see these blue bars, outdo the green bars is a great start. And as I've mentioned in the previous slides, this is just the beginning. As we keep continuing to move away from the pandemic, Asia as a whole, as a region, I think we're going to see more of these big RFPs
But
come through.
group size is still overall those smaller than pre-pandemic sizes, right? I mean, it's a little bit distorting because we're comparing it to 2021, but compared to say 2019, the group sizes in general, even in 2022, are still small by 2019 standards. Is that right? Is that right?
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct, Glenn. In fact, if you were to look at the volume of business as well, I wouldn't say that we're back. We're at the 2019 levels, because see, the damage or the impact that the pandemic had over 3 years is not something that we'd be able to recover as soon as the borders open up. It's going to be a gradual process. But the positives that we're seeing is that our planners are showing a lot of confidence in the
Sure.
region, and we're seeing, the size of business, grow.
Oh,
We're
yes.
seeing a lot of international business come through, so it's a
Yeah.
good start. Hopefully,
Very
with
positive.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think as we continue to do more webinars like these in 2023, I'm sure we'll see bigger graphs, more numbers, and hopefully we'll see bigger size of RFPs coming through.
Touching wood.
Um,
Touching wood.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Mm.
The sourcing pipeline.
Definitely
Sorry.
touch wood, and we really want to make sure everyone knows we're open for business.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct. It's making it clear that Japan is open for business again. That's the first step. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And see, Japan is definitely open for business, and the planners are actually um, are in complete agreement, because if you look at the 2023 and the 2024 sourcing numbers, they're very strong numbers. If you were
Wow.
to ask me, how does Japan stand with the rest of Asia, and it's definitely one of the top destinations. Roughly about $23 million worth of business is already sourced and kept in 2023 by our meeting planners right now.
Wow.
So yeah,
Okay.
that's a very good number. And what we've noticed, Glenn, is that as we've gotten closer to 2023, and say if we break down 2023 into quarters, so we've got Q1 coming up. So as we get closer to Q1, we've seen the sourcing numbers spike up. As we get
Because
into
of the
Q2,
short-term nature of the business at the moment.
yeah.
That would
Yeah,
make
it's just a dynamic landscape. It doesn't allow meeting planners to really start sourcing extensively.
correct.
They would, of course, experiment and probably source some RFPs just to test the
Mm.
waters
Yep.
long term. But what we've noticed that as we get closer and closer to, say, Q2, around about March, and Q2, when I say Q2, just for the audience, it's April to June for us. So by the time we get into Feb and March, we start seeing the numbers spike up. So these numbers are going to go higher.
Mm.
And as you can see for 2024, it's looking rock solid at $31.2 million worth of
Mm.
business.
Mm.
So all in all, Japan is trending extremely well. I think from the perspective that international planners have started to look at Japan as a destination that they want to come to.
Oh. It's almost half of all RFPs are from international, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
half of the RFPs are coming in from international, so that's a very strong point for us. The future of Japan holds well, with $50 million worth
Yeah.
of business already sourced. The size of businesses are up, and I think as we get more and more away from the pandemic, we'll only see better slides and better numbers for the future.
Yep.
So that brings us to an end to section one, which is mainly about what's the landscape like, what's the state of MICE in Japan.
Yep.
Now, what we want to do in session two is lend an insight into how the planner's thinking. What can you expect in terms of the type of business that's going to come through the platform, and how can you be prepared with these planners' expectations? So before we get into the report, what we did do was we partnered with an independent company by the name of Census Wide, and we surveyed about 250 organizations, which basically sourced group business. This included planners, managers, directors across Asia who were responsible for their sourcing. The reason why we did this and why we've included a few of the slides of this report is because we understand the planners have and always will be the backbone of our industry. Over the last 3 years, the landscape has changed considerably and constantly. And as we move away from the pandemic and things start to normalize, I think it's very important to get into the minds of the planners to understand what are they going to do over the next couple of months. So this report will share more into what are the planners thinking, and some of the questions that we posed to them. Well, the first question was, are you currently sourcing for in-person events? And this is like a big positive for us. I wanted to make sure I include this in the presentation. 81% said that yes, they are sourcing for in-person events. So they are moving away from, say, virtual events, which was the chief way of hosting events for a long time. It's not totally out of the window because, as you can see, question number 2 is what type of events are you currently planning for?
Yeah.
So there is a good mix of hybrid events, virtual events, and in-person event, which we will talk a little bit about in the slides to come, where technology is going to be a very important part
Yeah.
for hotels to be prepared with with the right kind of AV equipment, which is going to help meeting planners host events, which is going to be
Yeah.
hybrid in nature or virtual in nature. Of course, there's going to be an additional cost, but it's all about how do you keep the planner happy and how do you get repeat business to your hotels. It's all going to boil down to the
Well,
services you offer.
when it comes to winning business as well, right? If over 50, close to 50% is either going to be some form of tech involved in terms of virtual or hybrid events, is half of all business are going to want to be able to broadcast out or go, to a virtual audience. So that means you've halved your market if you're not successfully catering for that side of the market, right? So,
Yeah, agreed. And think about, say, one unique meeting planner who's doing different types of events. You don't want to leave that impression on him that, yes, you can do in-person events, but we're just not prepared for virtual or hybrid events. So you want to make sure that if you want to get that meeting planner back to your hotel, it's just a wholesome experience for him where he thinks of a hotel and he's like, I know these guys are really well prepared for any kind of event that I'm going to,
sure.
throw in their
And
direction.
it does make sense. Remember in the old days, you would have an event and you thought, oh, we can afford to have 1,000 of our staff come if it's a company event. But that's it because that's our budget. Whilst now you can have 4,000 come, 1,000 come in person and 3,000 attend virtually. Why wouldn't you go virtual as well? So, in the end, it's going to be pretty much 90% of the events will end up being hybrid, I believe. It's just and all recorded. So they've got it as content for future. Yeah, it's a really interesting space. But I know from holding events recently, it's great when you get the two, when it becomes hybrid, it's a really exciting event, right? Because you've got an audience that's inside the room and outside the room.
Agreed. And I think you're going to get your event out to so many more people
Correct.
that if you just had an in-person event, you'd probably take 3 years to just get, the message across to the people. Whereas now with
Exactly.
a hybrid model, you can just reach out to a
Correct.
larger audience all in
Correct.
one go. So, these are the kind of events that planners have in their minds for now.
Can I just, do you mind if I just add that? I just had I know we're not meant to digress or segue, but just had this idea. If you're a group, for example, Sai and Marriott, if you had to say, for example, a big event that someone said, look, we want 1,000 in person, and then we're going to broadcast out to, around the world to maybe another 3,000, whether that hotel group can then sort of sign deals that localized hotels can put on rooms where those localized cities can gather in a room and they kind of join in the event still, but they just don't incur airfares and your carbon footprint goes down because of, you're not flying all these people there, but they still have a sense of going to a place, a hotel, a room, a meeting room that's designed for the event. That could be kind of a nice big piece of business for a hotel group. They sign the original ballroom and the original master hotel and then another 20 sort of smaller ballrooms around the world, all within the group. That's sorry, I just had this idea.
As Presley says, if you have that setup, then you have an option for having more people join the event. And certainly our hotels have started to be able to provide the equipment and the setup for these hybrid events. Definitely they can work with sister properties overseas so that you can have one point of contact. They can organize the main events and then have sort of satellite events all through the world at the Marriott Hotel.
Yeah, and all connected through this kind of technology that connects them all together to this master event is pretty cool. Can see that really going somewhere quite quickly. Given the rate of change that we're experiencing, the digitization of things, it's going to head that way. Anyway, that was the segue. I'll let you keep going, Presley. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so the next question we asked them was, what about destinations? What's your choice going to be around destinations? We know that a lot of tier 3 and tier 2 markets are now getting really competitive. The markets have opened up, and that's resulting in a lot of meeting planners considering, say, a tier 3 market because of obvious reasons. There's lesser population, lesser chances of any kind of an outbreak. Your events are going to be planned out successfully. So one of or rather the most important factor for planners when they're choosing a destination in 2022 and 2023 is going to be the health and safety guidelines. How safe is it for their groups to come through to come through to their destination. Everything gets planned out safely, and all of their attendees head back to their homes absolutely safe and in good health. So that's the number one criteria. Some of the other things that you see, like venue cost, travel duration, positive reviews, are more, the standard, reasons or that planners have chosen for the last couple of years. Moving on, what are the most important considerations for a hotel? Again, venue location, of course, because it makes it easier for attendees to take a look at the local destination as well. You don't want to be like 40 kilometers away from the city center. Event space layout, room rates, meeting room specifications. So it almost feels like planners are also shifting their focus in a certain way, and they're going back to what they were thinking when they were choosing a hotel. Of course, technology is going to be a considerably important part, and that's the next slide for you. So if you're probably wondering, where does technology fit into this whole thing, then planners expect tech-enabled venues, and some of the things that they want hotels to have, which makes planning a lot more easier and convenient for them, is meeting room specifications and diagrams. 3Ds is something which is coming into our industry. Sustainability practices, they want to deal with hotels which are predominantly focused on sustainability, and help them plan their event right from the confines of their offices. So that's something that they are expecting hotels to have. A lot of hotels I know in this region are already embracing technology, and they're preparing for the big boom now.
Interesting to see the 3D images and interactive video at 39%. That's pretty strong. That's one of the kind of key ticks there, really, right? In terms of selling your space, you have to have that ability to put them in so they can look around in 3D. It doesn't have to be virtual. It's just being able to sort of get a really good understanding of the space because of not wanting to travel there. It's like, why waste the time? Why not just go there, have a look? Okay, that works really well. Can you put a sign up here and the screen that side and so forth? So I can see that gaining in percentage points over the next kind of 12 to 24 months as well, right?
Yep, and that brings us to the point of automation.
Can I ask?
Yes, sure.
Amongst those considerations when sourcing a venue, is ease of doing business with the venue also an option? Because I think that's a key part of deciding on a venue in Japan.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And we say Indonesia or a lot of countries, ease of doing business. Is that one of the key kind of parts of the decision process? Certainly in Japan, yeah.
Yeah, especially with slightly different challenges that you have in Japan.
Right.
I think definitely ease of doing business is something that that would be on top priority for a lot of planners when they're considering Japan. So that's a very good point that you make. And Glenn, just to come back to your point with 3D diagramming and allowing planners to do business right out of their confines, it brings us back to the point of automation, right? Where you're trying to take away a few things that we've been doing for years in the hotel industry that we feel that it's a great time to make that change, and take away the manual process of planner walking to a hotel to plan the event. The next part and the last part of this section, and of course we do have a full planner sourcing report. If you'd like to have access to it, then you can reach out to me directly. Which of the following event services and features do you expect hotels and venues to offer? Which is event space, designed for streaming, which is what we discussed, the hybrid events, offsite activities, locally sourced food. And this is great to see, because it's almost, we're shifting a few gears with the food.
Comes back to the local experience, the idea of local experience,
correct,
and the sustainability and all that.
Yeah, so there's quite a lot of key points here where we're shifting our focus. Just to quickly summarize for everybody who's in the audience, you of course need to have some technology that you're adopting. It's not going to be easy. Maybe a step phased approach where you are having more softwares that will help meeting planners do their business and conduct their events in a bigger and a better and a much more less expensive and time-consuming way.
And as with most things, technology is getting cheaper as well. It's becoming more affordable to punch above your weight. If you're a smaller hotel, there's lots of great software. It's not just obviously just in mice, but if you're looking at marketing tools or CRMs or something like, there's so many different companies are offering really great tools for very affordable. A bit like back in the day, LCD TV was really exorbitantly expensive, and now it's quite affordable. So technology is becoming that as well. It's small players can use quite capable technology and not have to pay through the roof for it. That's what's happening, really, from what I see.
Yeah, thanks, Len, and we agree with you. That's actually a great way for us to pivot into the last section that I'll be covering for you, which is more about automation and what is it that we can do, and what we feel is probably the way that you can take your hotels forward when it comes to automation. And I guess what I want to start with here is just think about your lives over the last 3 years and even today. We were um, very reliant during the last 3 years where we were locked up in our houses, and a lot of us were using the apps on our phone to ensure we carried on with life, right? From ordering your groceries to doing your bank transactions, things like that. A lot of those things we've carried forward even till today. My lifestyle hasn't changed. I'm a couch potato. I like being a couch potato on weekends. So my mobile phone plays a key role in getting my food ordered and things like that. So um, I think what we've experienced over the last, say, 3 years have lent a great deal of convenience to our lives, and just about every industry is now embracing technology, right? If you look at banking sector,
Yeah.
say about a couple of years ago, we'd have to go into a physical bank just to get a balance transfer done. Something as small as a name change needed you to go into a bank, whereas now you can do just about everything. Even your government documents,
Yeah.
can be changed by a simple form online. So a lot of industries are embracing automation, and what that is doing is that it's taking away a lot of the mundane tasks out of the landscape. And it's and for the hoteliers, I think what it would result in having is a more meaningful dialogue with the customer.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of relationship we want hotels to have with their planner clients as well. Think about, managing your room blocks. Think about an individual whom you pay who stands at the front office. Um, every time a group is confirmed, he receives an Excel sheet with a list of individuals who are part of a group, and he has to go and enter them one by one into the system. Like, that's something that's quite manual. It's very time consuming, whereas you can actually have that employee doing something else in the hotel which could generate more revenue. And that's what Posky does. It basically just, seamlessly integrates uh, with your hotel PMS system, or rather your CRS system, and uh, it transfers all the data without an individual overlooking it, like for like, just from the Excel sheet straight into your hotel system. So we can talk more about that, but essentially, when we look at automation, what is the need for automation? Why is it a growing need in our industry? Well, firstly, because hotels, post the pandemic, what I feel is that a lot of hotel staff are getting overburdened. I think it's time to take a lot of the additional tasks that they're having to do, and they're running around the hotel trying to complete them. It's time to take a lot of those away from them and help them focus on the core job, which is basically taking care of every guest who walks through the hotel
Mm.
doors. Automation can help do that, and can help remove a lot of the
Mm.
redundant tasks and allow your workforce to focus on more important things at hand.
Yeah.
Manual processes, see, they're getting really time consuming. A lot of time is being spent. Once again, you can have your staff move over, and event requirements have evolved post the pandemic. So it's time for us to embrace some technology so you're able to cater to the audience. On top of that, the plan expectations have changed drastically. So in our previous planner surveys, we reported that 47% of planners within Asia expected greater automation and efficiency in events and groups. And in this survey as well, they have been um, reiterating that this is something that they definitely want to experience moving forward. So
Presley,
yeah,
just
and
to give you a time check, Presley,
yeah,
just to keep on track for our 20 minutes at the end. Yeah.
sure. I'm just gonna take another minute and see what are the key objectives of any mice focused hotel. Firstly, it's maximizing your exposure,
Yeah.
keeping your profiles up to date, promoting your venues, safer meeting capabilities, as you've seen to the planner sourcing report. Secondly, is increasing efficiency. Let technology streamline your lead management process and automate sales, marketing, operation, just about every corner of your hotel that you can automate, do that, which will eventually help you drive greater revenues. Uh, so, which brings me to, sorry.
I like the customer is in charge and loving it. We all like that. We like to be in charge. Yeah.
Give me a quick second. My screens are frozen. I'm sorry, Glenn. Give me a
It
second.
seems that way. Okay, there we go.
Yeah,
Oh, I think you clicked forward a few.
Yeah. I think I've covered this part, which is automation, and then we've just spoken about this. But in lieu of time, we can move
Right.
on. Ladies and gentlemen, whoever's on the screen, my apologies, but maximizing your exposure, which is key on any online channel,
Yeah.
increasing your efficiency, which will eventually help you drive revenue, are going to be some key metrics for you to consider. At Cvent, there are things that we can help you, especially with your stuff, which is overburdened. And we look at the marketing side of things, we can help you amplify your exercise of building a brand. Manual processes are quite time consuming. So the sales part helps you organize, track, and build better relationships with your leads and your customers, followed by the operations part, which is taking care of the redundancies in your hotel, which you want to automate. So we've got hotel operations, MICE operations for that, and the transient, which is our corporate travel platform, which gives you the biggest corporate travel marketplace all under one roof. Some key takeaways, and there's quite a bit we've covered for you today. New sourcing priorities are driving planner decision making, which we discussed in the planner sourcing report. Agility is critical, so you need to be on your toes. You need to be thinking out of the box on how you can help the meeting planner with his variety of needs, whether if it's hybrid, virtual, or in person. And efficient through automation is key to accelerate recovery. This is a great time when things are a little slow to embrace technology, embrace automation, and make the change at your hotel.
We're still seeing the mice, your blue mice screen, the supplier.
I'm having some trouble with my presentation deck. Okay, they're the key takeaways. I'm sorry about that.
And do you have that that slide on the the breakdown, the pie chart of how the buyer's journey?
I haven't added that, but I can.
Yeah, if you put that on screen, maybe we can end with that. So because it kind of reinforces, it makes it very clear where how the planners are making their bookings.
Give me a quick second.
Okay, maybe we can move on if that's.
Yeah, maybe we can pick that up in the question and answer round towards the end. I don't have that.
That's good.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, agility. I think we all know about agility. Obviously we've all had to become so agile. We had a meeting recently in Singapore. We had a round table with chief marketers and revenue leaders. And when we talked about what do you see as, 2023 challenges, for example, the potential or looming or already in place recession, they were like, yeah. And we're like, wow, you're not worried about that. I think everyone's just got this, not sillily bulletproofing, but I think we feel if we got through the pandemic for the last 2.5 years as an industry, then we can pretty much make it through a small blip recession because, nothing sort of beats the grounding of global aircrafts across and for 2 years of struggling through business. So I think, the business confidence, if we are agile and we now have the tools and it's about adopting those tools, but enough from what we think. I mean, obviously the expert on the call is Cy West from Marriott, and we're really looking forward to hearing his take on how MICE has been progressing, especially for the Japan region. And so I just wanted to ask you if have you noticed a difference due to the pandemic? What are the changes? We've got a few questions on changes, but the first one would be sort of booking lead times. How are people coming to Marriott now? What are the booking lead times like?
Okay, thanks, Glenn. Good afternoon. So definitely compared to pre-pandemic, we're finding that for the smaller and medium-sized events and groups, the lead-in time is much shorter than it was previously. And I think there's a couple of main reasons for that. Firstly is that a lot of event organisers and group organisers, they had events in planning stages when the pandemic hit, and they've put that on hold. And now since we've had the announcement of the opening back up of Japan, they are going back to those plans. So it's kind of like a long gestation period for those events. So they're picking it up halfway through. So some of that planning's already in place, and then they can just start again. So it's like a new inquiry, but it's one that we were dealing with from a lot longer in the past. But it means it's for a new inquiry, it's a shorter lead-in period. For the larger events, we are seeing that some of those are coming, being sent through to the hotel with a longer lead-in period. If you've got to start from scratch to organise an event, you do need that much longer planning period. But just going back to small and medium-sized events, organisers are very conscious of not incurring any cancellation fees or attrition fees if the size of the event or the participants on a group reduces. So they want to leave that planning process as late as possible, so that they won't need to incur any of those charges. And interestingly, that's also the case we're finding with a lot of incentive groups, particularly with multi-level marketing companies, which put a lot of incentive groups into our hotels.
Right.
Whereas previously they would have maybe announcing the destination for an incentive trip at 1.5, 2 years in advance, even leaving that a lot later, so that they can reduce the risk of incurring any cancellation or attrition charges. So it's very interesting that our hotels have to deal with this much shorter lead period.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we're trying to educate customers that they do need to book in advance as much as possible. There's a huge pent-up demand for Japan, for leisure travelers. We're seeing corporate come back in a very strong way. Yeah. I've had a couple of cases recently where group organisers left it late, and we've had real problems trying to source a hotel for them. So we really need to focus on educating bookers to book as early as possible.
So that was one of my questions, actually. Do you see that trend kind of reversing a little bit over the next, say, 6 months, as people realize it's not the pandemic anymore? It's not book, you're going to miss out if you leave it at that. And then slowly you'll get the lead time will start increasing again as people realize they picked a hotel or destination, they want to lock it in. They want to know, not leave it to 2 months before and think she'll be right, it'll be available. It won't, because there's a lot of revenge travel going on at the moment, as well as with the return of corporate travel as well, right? So
there's a huge amount of revenge travel. Yeah. So as I say, huge pent-up demand. The leisure travel's coming back in a very strong way. So any group organisers need to bear that in mind. We're trying to come out of that pandemic mindset.
Correct.
I'm sure that it won't be too long before we get back to sort of more regular or pre-pandemic lead periods for groups.
Yeah, and normalized thinking, yes. So when you mentioned a few times there, group sizes, so can we just focus on that for a moment? So you see there's a definite, my guess would be that because, it's like Zoom, like these meetings and all the meetings I have now, which is just, let's jump on a Zoom call. It's so normal, such a part of our lives that you don't feel like you need to get suited and booted and get onto transport and go and see someone. You just get on a Zoom and it's almost 99% as good these days. And I think that would translate across to, MICE. So the group sizes have really, you've noticed there's definitely a shift between pre-pandemic and now, and that's something to stay, or is that also temporary?
Well, there's a couple of things related to that. I think firstly, people do want to meet in person, definitely. We've had 2.5 years of Zoom calls, and they really want to get back to face-to-face meetings. We have found in the research we've done that face-to-face meetings are here to stay. Obviously, with Zoom and Teams, it gives you the ability to broaden the participation in an event, but still there's going to be a core group of people that want to meet face-to-face.
Correct.
For some events and groups, we have found that participant numbers have reduced, particularly for incentive groups. That, I think, is related to still this mindset of will there be travel restrictions put in place? So they obviously, if it's a smaller group, they can handle that better. Cost cutting is also an element of that. They want to try and reduce costs, and if they can reduce the size of the group, that assists with that. But for a lot of our incentive groups in particular, the organizer really wants to provide an authentic Japanese experience. And the Tokyo Convention and Visitor Bureaus and the Japan National Tourism Organization, they're very much focused on providing experiences outside of the golden route of Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka. They want people to come to Japan, stay longer, really experience the country. And that's much easier to do if the group size is smaller. So, for example, one of our hotels, the JW Marriott in Nara, they collaborate with local temples, and an incentive group can actually go and have breakfast in a temple, have a private tour, go and see the museum that's associated with the temple. If you've got a huge group, that becomes very difficult to do.
Yes.
So it's all part of providing a more authentic experience.
Correct.
And that's not even just for incentive groups. Now we have event participants. If you're going to a conference, and as you say, you get suited and booted, you get to the airport, you take all this time to travel across the world to attend a conference in Japan, you want to make the most of that trip.
Exactly.
Maybe overall business travel, it has reduced, the number of conferences has reduced. So there's a mix of going to a conference and experiencing the local culture. And so conference participants want that as well. Maybe before they would have arrived in the day before, left straight afterwards. Now we're finding that they are extending their stay so that they can make the most of their trip and get a bit of some leisure time when they visit Japan as well.
The pleasure travel, right? The 2 days before and the 3 days after that 3-day conference or 2-day conference, you've made it a 5-day, 1-week trip, and you're tagging on the extra days. And there's a lot of revenue and money in those extra days, apparently. So it's about identifying that. And again, it's easier to do probably in smaller groups to be able to extract those extra days and work with them. Yeah.
If it's a huge group, yes, as I say, it just becomes that much more challenging. And you get a better experience if it's in a smaller group.
True. Yes. And I think we've all done the pleasure, because every time I go traveling now, I always tag on a few days because you haven't traveled in a long time, right? So even companies understand you'll probably want to take a couple more days. That's up to you, but we'll get you into the country and out. And if you want to stay a few extra days and stay connected, because we're all still so connected. So those extra days is clearly pleasure. You're still working, but you're just in a different location. So yeah, there's a lot of great benefits to business travel now.
And we're all connected remotely. So
correct.
If you're on a trip to attend a conference, you can easily work before and after the trip. We still have that. We have the option now as well. Yeah.
So would you have advice to hoteliers out there in terms of, conversion, how to confirm business in this new kind of way of operating? Because I know there's quite a few things have changed over the last few years.
Yes. Well, I think that key for any hotel to secure business in the current circumstances is to be very flexible in terms of the cancellation and attrition clauses for any group that's looking to come to Japan, flexibility with regards to the type of service, the product that they offer. I mean, I've been working in Japan now for 15 years, selling Japan as a destination. And there has been this image of Japan being a little bit difficult to work with. So I always recommend to the hotels that I oversee that a key for international business is really just to be as flexible as possible. Where a hotel is in a market that has a particularly strong overseas MICE customer base, we look to have an international salesperson in that hotel. So then they have a better understanding of overseas markets, how to create interesting, compelling proposals.
Yeah.
They understand how an overseas customer works and thinks. Maybe there's some cultural aspects to dealing with particular markets.
Yeah.
Also, of course, it makes it reduces the language barrier, and so unfortunately sometimes that can be a bit of a challenge in Japan. So that aspect is all about making our hotels easy to work with. Yeah. And so the customer then obviously compared to other hotel chains, we try and provide them a much more straightforward, easy to work with environment, and that gives them more confidence, and then they'll be more likely to move to the next step.
Do you think that feeds into the idea of, I mean, some of the current themes are, top themes in travel and hotels is personalization and local experiences. They're two terms that I hear at almost every event I go to is personalization and local experiences. So that kind of feeds into it now. If you're looking for, a customer, you can't just just give them a white label kind of present proposal and she'll be right and you'll get back and then we're going to start talking. You need to personalize it. You need to make it effective for them. And when you think if some of the top hot topics are local experiences, they probably want their group to have some form of local experience, because that's the whole idea of doing an incentive or a meeting is that you're folding in the local culture. So if you're missing out on some of those key elements, then you're probably going to be quickly bypassed for another group that is providing that in their proposals and so forth. Which leads me to conversion in terms of proposals. Has that changed at all? I'm hearing from India and Southeast Asia. It used to be, you negotiate 5 or 6 times, and now it's really a one-shot proposal and a court to win. I think Pariva from Hilton quoted as saying court to win, which is put your best foot forward first. Is that right? Does that apply to Japan?
Definitely. Well, the first stage, I think, is making sure that you understand the proposal and what the client is really after.
Yeah.
You tailor the proposal to those requirements. We don't in any way want to have just a cookie cutter approach.
Yeah.
In some cases, the hotel almost has to act like a destination management company. They need to be in a position to recommend local experiences or organize particularly F&B experiences in the hotel. So I have all my hotels have at least one F&B experience that they can provide on property. And that also instills confidence in bookers, because rather than going off-site for a dinner experience, they can do that in the property.
Yes, that's
right.
Then
with regard to pricing, we're definitely moving away from building in negotiation into any prices.
Yes, right.
So when a hotel will go through the whole process of evaluating a group, is it the right piece of business at the right time for the hotel? You go through that process and you decide on a rate. There's no point then building in wriggle room and then with the expectation that the client's going to want to negotiate. We put our best price forward, and then we have to educate the customer on that as well. Particularly some markets, they always expect that there's that negotiation space built into a proposal, but we really want to ensure that they understand that this is the best rates. We've looked at it carefully.
Yeah.
This is a win-win for both, we feel. So hopefully they'll move away from this idea that they're always going to go 2 or 3 stages in price negotiation.
Yeah, that seems to be a thing of the past now, or at least for the next maybe 6 to 12 months. What's come out of the other side is, put your best foot forward first, something that you're willing to run with. If they say yes, it's the right price. Which also feeds back then into the whole idea of personalization. Another term that came up on another call that I was on was consultants, not salespeople, which you just mentioned. Then you become like a destination consultant, because you have to really then, during that first couple of interactions, you have to find out really what they want, really listen to the client to find out what are their, okay, so they want a couple of local experiences, they want this, they want technology, because you've only got one shot with your proposal to kind of include their triggers, what they mentioned to you on the call. So in that process is increasing personalization, because the hotel person has to kind of listen more deeply and ask the right questions. So it all feeds into, it's probably a better way after, in the end, rather than not listening, putting together a proposal with fat, a bit of fat on it, so you got wiggle room, and then really find out what's going on right from the get-go. As get your communication skills right and move through, find out the triggers, and then price it correctly and put your best foot forward. That seems to be a phenomenon that's happening everywhere, which is really I can't put my finger on what caused it, but maybe it's just the technology efficiency. We're just expecting now more efficiency in everything we do, so even when it comes to these interactions.
Well, I always encourage my hotel sales associates to not just be order takers.
Correct.
They have to be partners with the customer. And some of the automation that we have now, it does leave them more time to be able to look at a proposal that really addresses everything that the customer is looking for, personalize it, provide some suggestions. That's got to be two-way. We don't want to be back and forth on the price, but we can certainly be back and forth on the experience that the customers
and people love to speak about that, right? They're happy with a back foot, but not really happy with a backwards and forwards on like a clip of price. And what you're saying feeds right back into what Presley was saying, that providing the right technology tools takes away the mundane and allows you to do, the people stuff, the more, like you're saying, let's look at your destination. You've got 4 days, you're in Kyoto, and what's near to there, and what can we do with your group? Rather than, listen, I don't have time to talk because I'm fiddling around with Excels and double entering and triple entering everything. That's where technology is coming into play to take away the mundane, which is a really, really good point. That pretty much folds up well for our whole webinar. I think you can maybe, we would take it to question time, but I'm conscious that we're near our hour. I was just thinking if you can give us a sentiment, Sai, on just the overall feeling for business in Japan. Is there a real confidence now going into 2023 in terms of the MICE space?
Well, I'm very lucky that I live and work in just an amazing destination for MICE business. We have 78 hotels in Japan now. Any budget, anywhere you want to go, it's just a fantastic destination. We've got great team members that, as I say, can personalize the experience for customers. But Japan is definitely open for business. There's a lot of initiatives in place at government level, local level, in welcoming groups back to Japan. So it's been a very long, tough 2.5 years, but welcome back to Japan.
Okay, thank you so much. And unfortunately, we are out of time for question time. However, we do have the info@hsmi-asia.com email. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email them through, and I'll share it with Sai and Presley, and we can get back to you. Likewise, we've all got LinkedIn, so you can reach out to any of us on LinkedIn if you've got a very specific question. We do hope you enjoy the call. It's been such a great pleasure meeting you, Sai, and listening to the insights of Japan. And Presley, thank you so much for CVent's contribution and the trends. They look really positive, and I'm sure the next time we conduct this, we're probably in 6 months' time. It'll be interesting to see what actually did take place over the previous 6 months. So on that note, I'd like to thank both of you for taking the time today, and hopefully you enjoyed yourself, and we'll take away the thought that let's all get ready for a more improved 2023.
Yeah. Thanks,
Okay.
Glenn.
Glenn.
Thanks,
everyone.
Presley.
Thanks,
Okay,
Si.
thank you.
Speak soon.
Bye-bye.